The Blast from Our Past Network.
Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura, a deep dive into underrated and unknown television shows from our youth. Cartoons, sitcoms, cop shows, and much more. Sit back and enjoy some nostalgic fun with TV Obscura.
Are your kids monsters? Captain Minimon's the answer.
And who can do hip-hop better than a frog can? Get down with the street frogs.
And hold on for exciting action and underwater adventure with the TigerSharks. All coming up on the
COMICSTRIP. Come on, take a trip on the comic strip. On the comic strip.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcasting After Dark presents TV Obscura. I'm one half of the pad team, Corey, a.k.a. CZC. Joined with me, as always, my brother from another mother, Zach, the total snackage Schaefer.
Who can do better than me at hip-hop? I'm the hip-hop man.
Dude, we're recording this midday on a Saturday. How freaking appropriate.
People are going, don't you have lives? Yes, we do. We do have lives.
As we're watching Bodie making hand signals behind you.
I mean, it's kind of perfect that Bodie is joining us in, like, his presence is here. You guys can't hear him. Do you want to say hi really quickly? You could say a normal voice.
Hi.
Hey, buddy.
He just turned 9. We're about to drop. This is the season premiere of season 5.
Yep.
TV Obscura. I guess Bodie's filling in for Diallo on this one, right?
Yes. So, unfortunately, Diallo is not riding shotgun on this episode. He is on a much-needed and much-deserved vacation. So, buddy, hope you're out there having a good time and everything. And sorry you can't be here to kick off Season 5 with us. But the lack of Diallo is not an indication of any sort of change-ups behind the scenes. It's just one episode, and it happens to be the Season 5 premiere. So, Zach and I are tackling a cartoon anthology that I have no familiarity with, which is weird because in 1987, I mean, I was 9 years old, so I should be aware of some of these cartoons. But we are talking about the anthology comic strip, or is it called The Comic Strip?
Come on, take a trip on the comic strip. Yeah. Sure.
There it is. The comic strip. Zach, what are the 4 shows that are included in this? And why are we discussing this one? Does this one have any nostalgic familiarity to you?
This one has serious nostalgic familiarity to me and to my son, actually, because when I was 11 in 1987, which, by the way, might quite possibly be the best year for the 80s as far as pop culture is concerned. That can be a debate we'll have on the wrap-up show on our Patreon. And if you'd like to become a Patreon member, go to patreon.com/podcastingafterdark and sign up today. It's totally worth it. I know I say that all the time. But it is totally worth it. So I was 87. I was in 87.
You were 87 in 87, yeah.
Well, let me tell you. I think this cartoon this series, the comic strip, had a huge influence on me as far as voice acting is concerned, because the intro to this show is all one guy doing a bunch of different voices, and I remember like imitating it when I was a kid, singing the theme song to comic strip, COMICSTRIP. Come on, take a trip on the comic strip. And
I actually really like that intro song. I think it's a very catchy jingle.
I totally agree. And then the preview of the 4 shows, you know, they start out with, he's mean, he's lean, he's a karate machine. Kia, baby. Karate cat. And then, are your children monsters? Bring them to Camp Minimon. And then, who can do hip-hop better than a frog can? Get down with the street frogs. Hold on to adventure with the TigerSharks. I basically just told you all 4 shows. But the guy who does the voice to that, which reminds me, I didn't track who it was exactly, but it reminds me a lot of the guy who used to do the Breyers ice cream commercials with like the whitish blonde hair.
Oh,
he was like a voice. He was kind of like Michael Winslow from Police Academy.
Okay. All
Anyways,
right.
I love this show when I was a kid. When Bodie was very little, I would show him the show. I would show him the clips on YouTube. We watched a lot of TigerSharks. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it is.
And then I showed him all 4 shows just not that long ago, but we'll get to all that later.
Well, so what I've noticed is that one of the voices for all 4 is Earl Hammond. Is he the one that did the opening intro and everything? Is that who you're referring to? But there is one other person. I think it was Peter Newman is also in a lot of them as well. But no, Bob McFadden. Earl Hammond is in a lot of them, and then McFadden is in a lot of them as well. So I'm not quite sure which is the one that was doing all the voices.
You know, it's very tricky. I'm not sure. I know that at the same time I was watching Reading Rainbow, and this guy had done like a bit on voice acting on Reading Rainbow, and that was a huge influence on me as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's him or not, but you know, I think at the time it like showed me that you can do so much with your own natural voice and do all these different characters. And I think because of this show, I was already familiar with Thundercats and Silverhawks, and we'll talk about the connection that those 2 shows have to one particular show. But I think I was like, oh, that's the voice of Lion-O doing that voice. Oh, that's the voice of Cheetara. You know, suddenly it started making me very aware that these shows were not just in my imagination a beautiful thing, but like I was more self-aware, more aware of the fact that, oh, right, like these are voice actors playing these characters. They're not just characters, right? 11 years old, you start to realize that the Wizard of Oz is behind the curtain. You know what I'm saying? And that these things are fictional characters, not just real. Because when you're younger, you still believe in the, I think Thundercats are real. I think Silverhawks are real. And then you get older and you're like, oh, that's just a character on a show.
Right.
So it's a different level of imagination, world building. And for me, it was like, oh, that voice it wasn't just hearing Flint in G.I. Joe and then hearing him in Humanoids. You know, it was like, oh, all these character actor voices were coming together for me now. And I was like, that's really cool. I want to do that for a living. Way back in 1987.
I mean, that's awesome, dude. That's much more of an importance in your life than I ever thought that the show was going to be. I didn't know, right? I didn't know all that. So I'm glad we're covering it. I'll just kind of, elaborate, a little bit more on my end. 1987, this went straight to syndication. So I'm wondering like why I didn't see it. Like I figured this would be right up my alley across the board. Now I will say, I do remember TigerSharks. I do remember their existence. I didn't have any recollection of watching it as I was watching it, although I was quite impressed with the animation. But I do remember it existing. Maybe it was in toy form or something, but I have no recollection of the other 3 cartoons in this grouping and the comic strip, moniker itself, like the overall, what this anthology show was called. So I don't know when this aired in my neck of the woods on the East Coast around DC and Baltimore area. Maybe this was a Sunday cartoon, because Sunday cartoons I never really got a chance to watch too many Sunday cartoons. And the only ones I did watch were the Hanna-Barbera ones. What was the Wacky Racers and that kind of stuff? That's what I remember Sunday mornings being. But I don't remember any of these at all.
I believe, to the best of my knowledge, I think this was on the USA Network for me in the morning. And I remember that in our show notes is the link to this particular episode we're going to be discussing today. Is that right?
Yeah, it's on Patreon. It's not behind the paywall. We always put them up for free. But yeah, you can go and watch this one that Zach and I watched, and it actually has 1987 commercials as well. And we're gonna rattle off a couple of them at the end of all this because I took some notes. But yeah, it's a great link. It has multiple episodes of each show, so you can watch as little or as many as you want. The whole YouTube video is about 2 hours long. But yeah, go on over to patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. And yes, you can watch the entire, what we're going to be talking about. The link that we used, we have it posted for free, so you can watch that.
Yeah, so I think I remember seeing, this is kind of a mashup of a couple different episodes, because I believe, I remember seeing the hype for this either in a comic book or TV guide or something. God, TV guide, you remember that?
And kids are like, what? What is that? What does that mean?
Right?
Is that a channel? Isn't that a channel on cable?
Yeah, it tells you what's coming up on your television screen. It's at a hotel. They play them on the hotel TV screens when you turn them on. No, I remember seeing the hype for this and going, wow, there's all these cartoons in one block, and that's so cool. And I remember the initial block was all 3 or 4 cartoons.
Yeah, I think it was all 4 in one go.
But then moving forward, I think they chopped it down to like 1 and 2, and then eventually just 1 with TigerSharks, because I think that was the most successful out of these 4.
I can totally see that. Yeah.
I mean, so Rankin Bass, really quickly, Rankin Bass is the production company behind this. If that name sounds familiar, and Lorimar-Telepictures. Rankin Bass is mostly known for their stop motion animation, like the Santa Claus is Coming to Town and
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Right.
Yep.
But then Lorimar-Telepictures is mostly known for their animation, which includes, like I said, Thundercats, Silverhawks. They produced Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, actually, too, and Dallas. They did live action and animation. 8 is enough.
Go listen to our Dark Knight of the Scarecrow review. We did a full proper breakdown and review of that movie.
Yeah, so this production company, listen to some of these other things they did. Freddy's Nightmares.
Okay.
The Hogan's Family. Gumby. Greatest American Hero. They did movies like Gorillas in the Mist. And The Last Starfighter. So, and Max Headroom. I mean, so the list goes on. I could list off. I'm looking at their slate of films, television shows that they pumped out, and it's a who's who of like 80s Wonderland.
I mean, everything you just mentioned was probably aside from Gorillas in the Mist, although I remember that being a massive, big deal when it came out. But everything else that I'm not surprised. But everything else you mentioned is a part of my childhood.
Yeah, same. By the way,
I was a huge Max Headroom fan, by the way.
Me too. And seeing Gorillas in the Mist scarred me, amongst many things. I will not bring that movie to pad, but
is that she Diane Fossey? Is that who that is? Or
it's based on her, I think. And
so it's not a proper biography, right?
I don't think it is, but I remember Sigourney Weaver's character having a really brutal demise, or at least talked about it at the end. Like they flashed the screen of what happened to her because she was tried to save the gorillas in the mist. Did
they kill her, or did poachers kill her?
They chopped her head off. The
poachers did? Yeah, that happens.
I mean, my God. Anyways, this series, though, ran for 65 episodes, which is wild.
That is.
And it's tricky. If you go on Wikipedia and you look up the comic strip, it doesn't really break down how many episodes each thing had. And it's kind of hard to track that stuff. Karate Cat, I think had the shortest run out of all of them. And it's a shame because I feel like Karate Cat had potentially the best premise outside of the other two, outside of TigerSharks, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways,
I
we can
agree.
talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
But I think, again, this is like a who's who of voice actors, including some people that today are more well-known now than they were back in 1987.
Yeah, I know. I was completely shocked. Well, all right. So, guys and gals, Zach, you want to just basically we'll it's got 4 cartoons. So we're going to do 4 different chunks. We're going to do them in order: the Mini Monsters, Street Frogs, Karate Cat, and then Tiger Sharks. It's not going to be our normal routine where we talk about one episode and one person. Zach's going to kind of show run the whole thing, just because I had no familiarity with any of this stuff. And instead of a giant 20-minute breakdown of each cartoon, we're just going to do sort of a quick one and then give our thoughts, and then maybe treat the discussion as a whole towards the end, because this was supposed to be an anthology cartoon, so I think we should look at these cartoons individually, and then we should look at them as a whole, as a part of a whole, because I don't think, consistency-wise, I don't think they mesh as a whole,
They definitely do not. But yeah, we'll kind of take one show at a time and discuss our feelings on it, and then move on to the next one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so the first one we'll start with is Camp Minimon, the Mini Monsters.
Which is funny because it's called it's called the Mini Monsters, but Camp Minimon is such a better name and so much better, a better branded name, or potentially to brand. But no, they went with the Mini Monsters instead.
Yeah, which is very weird. But we're going to talk about why the show is so weird anyways. So it's about these 2 siblings, Sherman and Melissa. Sherman, by the way, is voiced by Seth Green.
Yeah.
And they are complete tyrants. They are monsters. In the first 30 seconds of the show, they are destroying their house. And I'm like, actually, I think they need a different kind of camp than Camp Minimon.
Yeah,
and it has bars around it and barbed wire.
And as the parents just sit there and read the newspaper, and the dad's like, I'm the voice of authority, and pay attention to me, but yet he's never probably done anything to earn anyone's respect. And I was just like, oh my God, this is the 80s. This was parenting in the 80s. Just kids, just shut up, stop talking. We're not going to deal with your problems, and that's why you're all going to turn out to be 30, 40-year-old messed up human beings in the 2000s, because no one's going to address anything. But
Pretty much.
Yeah, just push those feelings down and keep an eye on them.
Push those feelings down. Push those feelings under the rug. They'll never build up and explode. Yeah. So yeah, the dad's being terrorized by the kids, but is oblivious. The mom is reading a newspaper ad and sees Camp Minimon and, quote, sounds Indian. Yep. So, and according to Bodhi, he's like, that's racist, right? And I go, yes, it is. Yep. Because it's terrible. And I said, this is the time when we were not thinking about other ethnicities other than Anglo ethnicities. But let's poke fun at the minorities. But anyways.
And there will be more racism to come in other cartoons.
Just getting started.
We are just getting started.
They hit all the bases. I think all 3 of the first shows.
Yeah.
Anyways, they send them to Camp Minimon, which is it's literally a camp for monsters. And Count Dracula's there, Frankenstein's there, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Mummy, Invisible Man. The camp director is kind of a shadowy organ-playing guy who's voiced by Peter Newman. If that name sounds familiar, he's Quicksilver from Silverhawks. He's also Tigra and Wily Cat in Bengali from Thundercats. And the minute you hear his voice, you're like, oh, I know that dude. Anyways, they get into regular, typical sitcom type adventures. I mean, the first one is about Sherman getting turned into an animal, and they got to turn him back to a human. The following episodes that follow are like the stomach ache episode or the alien episode.
Yeah, the alien that comes down. Yeah.
But what I find very interesting about this show, to start it off, is that almost all of the characters, all the monsters, all sound like they're from New York, because that was like the thing to do back in the day. Everybody put on a New York accent, and it was wacky. And that's what they pretty much do with most of the characters on this show. Corey, what do you think of Camp Minimon?
I mean, this one, I'd say on the surface, at first blush, I think this one had the most potential.
Totally
you could do
agree.
so much with it. You could have so much fun with these monster types and tropes and stuff like that. But what I found was it was quite uninspired. The monsters themselves didn't have much personality that I thought that they really captured or dwelled upon. Like, the mummy wanted to be a boxer or something, but they didn't really do much with it. Maybe they did in later episodes, sure, but right away, I don't know. I didn't get the whole point of him. And then on top of it, like I've watched 2 of the episodes, the alien one and the one with turn the kid into a rabbit, whatever.
Yeah.
There was like no moral. There was no point to the story other than to just be a zany sort of story, I guess. And
yeah.
I'm just like, I guess as a kid, I didn't care if there were no morals or anything like that. But as I get older, my idea of like stories and storytelling is, what is the point of this? What are you trying to impart other than just being blanket entertainment? Because animation is going to be blanket entertainment for a kid no matter what. You might as well include some kind of moral message in it. I just didn't find any messaging here, and the show starts with the 2 protagonists being absolute terrors. I'm like, am I supposed to relate to them? And then, they're kind of, I just also didn't relate to the monsters either. So maybe it builds steam over time, but like watching 2 episodes, I was like, no, this is not for me now, and I don't think it would have been for me back then either. I'll just finish my final thoughts on Camp Minimon. There's only one camp that I cared about as a kid, and that was Camp Candy.
Wow, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was thinking the same thing. Bodhi actually pointed out, he's like, why does the mummy have 1 boxing glove? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I have no idea.
There were these they all had these personality quirks that are great. Like I said, it's on paper, like, okay, it's cool, but then they don't do anything with any of those personality quirks.
No, they don't. And like the crow is pretty cool, or the raven or whatever he is. He's a cool character, and there's like funny. The wolfman is like a jokester, right? But they don't really go anywhere. I'm sure like you said, maybe they do. I don't know. We watched all 4 episodes that are on this block.
Yeah.
And they got kind of progressively worse. Yeah. When you make your main characters like absolute pieces of garbage and just like, it's funny to break windows, gee, gee, gee. No, it's not cool. And second of all, I think Corey and I have kind of determined that as much as we love so many of these other cartoons from the 80s, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, their moral messages still hold up. And that idea, like whether it was cheesy back then, is not cheesy now because we need more moral messages for kids. That might be like the greatest cartoon of all time. Corey thinks that. I'm still on the fence. I still think G.I. Joe is, but I could see why he would think that.
Yeah, I know. I've actually been watching a lot of G.I. Joe and He-Man lately. I think G.I. Joe is timely of its time, and I think it's still fun. But ultimately, man, I think He-Man still holds up to today, and like on first viewing. And I don't know if G.I. Joe quite holds up as well.
I don't think the moral messages do necessarily. Well, those are always tacked on at the end. There was an intention with Filmation, and I think Filmation, the legacy of Filmation, will only continue to get like bigger and more improved as time goes by.
Yeah, I think so.
Because they put so much thought into it. Camp Minimon is like, this feels like someone just pitching whatever they have in the drawer of their desk. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I was going to save this for my final thoughts, but it seems like all 4 of these cartoons are just a hodgepodge thrown together. It doesn't feel like there's any connective tissue. It's just, we have 4 different concepts that we haven't produced. Or maybe we've produced some episodes and they haven't gone anywhere. Let's just put them all into this cartoon block. And unfortunately, and Zach and I will rate all 4 of them in order at the end of what we thought. Mini Monsters is going to be quite low on my list.
Well, let's move on to the next one. Let's get down with the Street Frogs. Okay, first of all, oh boy. So the Street Frogs is
more racism, Zach?
Well, Bodhi was kind of questioning that, and I'm like, I don't know, dude. I mean, it's about a group of frogs that are an quote urban group of frogs that form a band and try to hit the big time. And basically, every episode is about them trying to earn more money,
which they call seed. Is that the seed they keep wanting? They keep referring to.
Yes. You know, there's a character on the show, like the DJ, who he's like, get on the hotline, and I'm sticky, I'm wet. Like everything is a pun with frogs, right? And the there's a rap song in every episode, which I actually kind of dig. I think it's cool. The characters, there's Big Max, who's voiced by Bob McFadden. And again, if that name sounds familiar, he was Snarf on Thundercats. And I think he was a couple characters on TigerSharks. And we'll get to that later.
Snarf, one of my least favorite cartoon characters of all time.
I will say Snarf probably is the least favorite sidekick in the history of action animated shows.
Agreed.
I'll take
Orko.
Cringer any day.
Yep.
I will take, but Snarf is basically Cringer.
Yeah, but
Cringer
turned into Battle Cat.
Yeah, Snarf turned into. Oh wait, that's right. He didn't turn into anything.
Snarf sucked.
And I think they corrected that in the Thundercats reboot on Cartoon Network in the early 2000s. They corrected Snarf. They didn't give him a voice. He just he was like more of just like a side character.
Gotcha.
Snarf is Snarf, but
Snarf is Snarf.
Let's get to the other characters in this show. So there's Big Max, like I said, Spider, Moose the Loose, and Honey Love, who's voiced by Tanya Willoughby, but it's a shame because you go to look her up and you can't find anything for her, at least on Wikipedia. And Dr. Slick. And then there's a character named Snappy Sam who runs the diner. Snappy Sam is important to mention because he's voiced by Ron Taylor. And Ron Taylor, if you look him up, he played Audrey 2 on the Broadway version of Little Shop of Horrors.
Okay.
But he's had a pretty awesome career on screen in the 80s. So in Trading Places, he was big black guy.
And he was the one in the jail cell. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He was actually, it might have been the other guy who was actually talking, and the other guy went, yeah.
I think it was the other guy he had sort of like longer hair, sort of slicked back. Yeah, I think that was him. The guy next to him was the one that would say, yeah.
Yes, that's right. In the Ice Pirates, he was Pimp Robot.
I love Ice Pirates, man.
Exterminator 2, he was Dude.
We still haven't covered that one yet.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, he was Lao She, the voice of Lao She.
Okay.
I think in the beginning. But he was in Who's That Girl? He was in Dead Heat, which we've talked about. He was one of the shootout zombies.
Yep.
He's been in movies like Second Sight, Heart Condition, Downtown,
Second
Mighty
Sight
Quinn.
Wait, is that the one with John Larroquette?
Yes, and Bronson
Pinchot, yeah.
Amazing, right? He was on Night Court. He was on 3-2-1 Contact, Miami Vice. I mean, come on, like that should be, heralded. Anyways, he's one of the highlights of the show. The show is primarily an African American cast, which is great, because most of these would be like white actors portraying black actors. There was always a musical number. It's a very cliche, like let's make it as a band kind of thing with wacky antics ensuing. It's not terrible. It's okay. It's, as Bodhi would say, it's fine. What are your thoughts on the Street Frogs?
Yeah, I thought this was a vast improvement over the Mini Monsters. I liked how they had a purpose. Like with the Mini Monsters, again, I was saying, maybe if it's just not the moral message, they had no purpose. They were just at camp and stupid shenanigans happened. Here, I liked how the band had, ambition. I like how they're trying to do something, and I they want to make their seed. I was like, why don't they just call it money? But okay, fine. And I actually liked the songs that, like, I liked how musical it was. I very much enjoyed that aspect of it. Animation wise, it was okay. It was serviceable. It was passable. But overall, I think I enjoyed their mission here. Like, I enjoyed the fact that they had something that they were trying to accomplish, and I guess it's gonna keep being the through line through the whole series, is them trying to gain exposure and stuff like that. But it's a very relatable thing especially for us. We're artists and everything. I understood this. I understood their passion. And I understood them, wanting to eat, because I believe artists should be paid and,
Agreed. Yeah.
Make a living doing what they want to do. And I also understood, what they had to do to get there. So all in all, I thought the Street Frogs was very entertaining. I enjoyed this one a lot, actually.
Oh, that's good to hear. I know there's one episode where they where the DJ, the radio DJ, takes the day off, or he goes on vacation, and they fill in for him, and they get their music on, and everyone loves it, right? And I feel like that could have been the finale of the show. Like, they hit the big time finally, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Street Frogs.
Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Welcome to Manic Movie Monday, where one person's trash is another person's treasure. Here we celebrate the trash, the treasure, and everything in between.
When women get stressed, we take a bath.
There's a lot to unpack with this movie.
Spoiler alert, prison is not like reform schoolgirls, and I really wish somebody would have told me.
We're catfishing serial killers. We're just trying on clothes without tags and seeing what fits. Everyone is wearing mail order lingerie. So join us every other Monday and stay manic.
And now, back to the show.
Kiao, baby, let's talk about Karate Cat. He's mean, he's lean, he's a fighting machine. Kiao, baby. Karate Cat is about a private investigating cat who uses his karate to fight crime in his town. Usually he's fighting Big Papa and his two lackeys, Boom Boom Burmese and Sumo Sai. And his boss at the McClaw's detective agency is Big Mama McClaw. The voice of Karate Cat is Bob McFadden, once again, that I mentioned earlier. And one of the co-workers that Karate Cat has is Dr. Katmandu, K-A-T, voiced by Larry Kenney. If that name sounds familiar, he is the voice of Lion-O from Thundercats. He's also the voice of Bluegrass in Silverhawks, one of my personal favorites, and Dolph in TigerSharks. He's also the voice of Count Chocula and Sonny the Cuckoo
My least favorite
Bird.
Tiger Shark, by the way, Dolph.
Dolph is probably my least favorite Tiger Shark, but I always thought Bluegrass was kind of cool with the guitar, and he was the pilot of the ship, right?
Yeah, no, I liked Bluegrass. Zach and I famously are on opposite ends when it comes to Shipwreck on G.I. Joe. Zach loves him. I'm not the biggest fan. But
That's true.
Bluegrass, I loved Bluegrass. I thought he was cool as shit, dude.
Yeah, and the figure was cool. The figure, I still have the figure. He had like a mohawk and a cowboy hat that fit over his mohawk.
Yeah, I loved when you took off his cowboy hat, he had that badass mohawk. I always thought that was super cool.
Oh, they were so ahead of their time. Anyways, Karate Cat is very formulaic. I don't think it lasted. I think it lasted the least out of the three cartoons, but Karate Cat sounds like Stallone to me. When he talks, he talks like Stallone.
My first note here, is that supposed to be Sylvester Stallone?
Right, and Lady Lovely Locks is a funny character on the show too. Sorry, no, we're not going to talk about that, and we'll get to that later. And they've got characters like Meow Baby, who's voiced by Maggie Wheeler, and she's known for being Janice on Friends.
And also she was a voice on Mini Monsters. She was Jinx the Witch as well. So she was doing a lot of voice acting earlier in her career, and then she's became more of a screen actor later.
Yeah. So Karate Cat again is like, It had one segment on this link that is in our show notes. It's only 10 minutes long. It goes by really fast. It like ends before it even starts because you're like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
But
he like figures it out like in the first 5 minutes or something, and then yeah.
But it's not bad. I actually thought this one had more legs, but didn't really prove to be successful for them either.
Yeah, this one I thought was a bit problematic. There was a very racist character in this one. I guess it's supposed to be sort of Odd Job-esque, right, from James Bond.
I think it's Sumo Sai, right? Is that who you're thinking of?
Yeah, Sumo Sai is this. He's a cat. Very racist, Asian racist.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't. You know what? I could not connect to the main character, the Karate Cat guy. I couldn't connect to him because of the voice, and I was just like, it doesn't seem to fit the character. And I was just like, it was a weird barrier for me. And then like, he turns into his karate clothes, and I'm like, that seems a bit less practical than the clothes you were actually just wearing. Like, I don't even see the need for you to turn into this kung fu fooey type of thing,
Total ripoff of Kung Fu-y.
Yeah. Yep. So this was a kung fu-y / Heathcliff hodgepodge ripoff. And I can see why this one's not going to last, to be truthful with you. And then like on top of it, it's a world where animals are sentient, but yet the crocodile isn't. That always confused me as a kid. It's like, why is Goofy sentient, but Pluto isn't, and stuff like that. And it just, I didn't connect with Karate Cat at all, to be completely honest with you, dude. This one was the one that was the hardest for me to sort of get into. Like with Mini Monsters, I understood what they were trying to do, and I just think they failed doing it. Here, I was just like, I don't even see the appeal of the pitch, like the elevator pitch of this one. I just don't even see the appeal of it.
Yeah. No, I totally see what you're saying. I feel like that's probably the reason why it wasn't as successful as the other ones, you know? So moving on, TigerSharks.
Well, hold on. I want to talk a little bit more about Karate Cat.
About
because
the racism in it?
It's the most racist of all four of the cartoons.
The only thing it did not have was a gong after someone talked.
Now, it was not as racist as the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure cartoon. That will always go down. At least that one episode will always go down as the single most racist cartoon we've ever covered on TV Obscura.
And you're welcome.
But Zach, you said you kind of liked his voice and everything. So did his voice appeal to you? Did the Sylvester Stallone voice appeal to you of the Karate Cat guy? Or, I'm just curious.
I think so. It didn't fit the character, but it was kind of a cool voice. I'm like, I like this kind of cool voice. And watching it now in 2023, I'm like, was this the early test pilot that they were making? Because it feels like that. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot going on in this episode to flesh it out. It just feels like, we're just going to test this animation footage. We're just going to test this animation footage and see what happens. That's what it feels like to me. I think I wanted to like it more than it probably did. You know what I mean? As a kid, I probably wanted to like it because I liked, let's pause for a moment and reflect on the fact that I saw Fritz the Cat when I was like probably 8 or 9 years old. My brother brought this home and we watched it and I was like, what's this? Oh God. Because it's basically a porno with animals.
Yeah.
And
Ralph Bakshi, right? I believe.
Yeah. And so I think I was like, oh, Karate Cat, animals. And I'm still a little kid. That would have been a whole lot better to watch this than Fritz the Cat. I can see why you didn't like it, and I can see why. I think I probably liked it from the perspective of I wanted to hope. I idealized it more than I actually, when it came to fruition, I'm like, it's not that good.
Yeah, and I understand that. The desire to want to like something and for something to be better than it. Yeah. Were you ever a Garfield versus Heathcliff? Which one was your
I actually liked Heathcliff more.
Me too, buddy. I was a Heathcliff kid growing up.
Yeah, I never got I got Garfield. I got the appeal. But I think Heathcliff is like punk rock and Garfield is like mainstream pop. And though I love mainstream pop, I'd like the edgier side with his cool hat.
Yeah.
There were the cat thing was popular. Like you said, Hong Kong Phooey was the dog. But there was like Top Cat was another character that was kind of popular. Snagglepuss. Oh, Snagglepuss.
Even.
Heavens to Murgatroyd.
Exit stage left even.
Obviously, Pink Panther was a popular character to have for kids. This was biting off of all that stuff and failed.
Yeah,
this was the cat version of Hong Kong Phooey, which I think is also racist too, right? That's racist.
Yes, very, very much so. Yeah, you're right.
And
There were
there
a lot of cat cartoons in the 80s.
Yeah, there were.
Weird. Weird.
Yeah, it is. And there weren't a lot of monster shows. I feel like the Groovy Ghoulies was the only thing that I can think of monster-wise that was like a comedy monster thing for kids.
Yeah,
there was obviously the Ghostbusters, but the monsters weren't the main characters.
Right, and then Teen Wolf, but there's only one monster in it.
I'm saying like an ensemble of monsters.
Yeah, no, I know. Because and the Monster Force isn't going to come out until the 90s. You would just think... Well, all right, let's talk about that in our full wrap-up when we talk about all of them together. Because I do want to also mention... Because I'll say it now, this Karate Cat one, this episode, he also didn't have any kind of moral or some kind of that they're sort of imparting. It's just a thing that happens and he solves it, So in the wrap up discussion of all this, not on Wrap Up After Dark, but in this episode, I want to talk about how important having an actual moral to the episode is versus not,
Of course, yeah, of course.
All right, but let's get into the best cartoon of this whole entire block.
Yeah. Who's got a tiger by the tail? Hold on, TigerSharks. TigerSharks. So TigerSharks is a spin-off of Thundercats and Silverhawks. In the Thundercats reboot by Cartoon Network in the early 2000s, they even have an Easter egg homage to TigerSharks and Silverhawks at the tail end of the initial mini-series run of Thundercats. Yeah. It's like on a monitor or something.
So they're a shared universe then. TigerSharks, Thundercats, and Silverhawks are a shared universe. Okay. I remember that Thundercats reboot. I enjoyed it, but I probably liked the Four Horsemen He-Man reboot a bit more, and I might have watched that more as well. I remember this one kind of got canceled a little bit unceremoniously, didn't it? It did. The Thundercats one.
Yeah, because the initial Thundercats miniseries that came out was obvious obvious nods to Lord of the Rings, obvious nods to the hero's journey, and then it continued. The series continued after that for I think I forget how many episodes, but it got canceled mid season or something, which is a real bummer. Because if you watch the miniseries as a whole, it's kind of perfect. It doesn't need to have the extra episodes, but the other episodes are really good. I have grown to love it over the years because I've rewatched it with Bodhi. But TigerSharks, talking about TigerSharks, is a show about a group of humans who discover one of the humans creates a fish tank, which converts them from humans into fish form. Walro is the scientist of the group, and he is the one who creates that. The other characters on the show are Mako, Dolph, Octavia, Lorca, Bronk, and Angel, and Gup. Gup is a dog who becomes a fish as well.
So it doesn't work. It doesn't just work on humans. It works on dogs as well.
It works on all of them, and they literally become versions of their names, right? So I think you can all kind of figure out what they become.
Thank God your name isn't Turd Ferguson or something, right? Because it's clearly the technology works where that you just become what your name is.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's stressed in the first episode, and I don't think it's ever brought up again, but this is their only way to convert to and from their body form. one episode would be great if they blew up the machine, and then like how do they get back? But they never did that. So they face off against a group of villains known as the Mantennas, and their leader is T-Ray. What up, T-Ray? And T-Ray and his cohorts in the opening episode, which is basically the pilot, they free Captain Bizarrely and his
Dragonstein?
Dragonstein from Siberia, and they have like Russian accent sort of, they're trapped in ice, and they freeze them from ice. In that opening episode, I think it's Lorca who is captured by the Mantennas, and he eventually gets rescued by the TigerSharks, and all hell breaks loose. They live in Watero. That's the world they inhabit, and there are Watarians who basically look like sea monkeys.
Yeah.
And that's the premise of the show. It's basically the same format as Thunderhawks and Sorry.
Yeah, you keep doing
Oh my God, I keep doing it.
I love it. This is great. I would love for someone to do a mashup of Thunderhawks and like.
I mean, it could happen. So it's the same premise in many ways as Thunderhawks. Silverhawks and Thundercats.
Guys and gals, I think we broke Zach, by the way.
You did. My dog was barking. It's in the afternoon.
Yeah, we're recording midday. We're neither of us are drinking currently. This is the weirdest episode we've ever recorded.
And probably will be the best episode, however lacking Giallo. So this show, had the adventure. The follow-up episode to this one is Bronk and Angel find one of the Mantenna's vehicles, and they take it from them, and there's two basically the same voice of Schnarf. Weakfish and Carper are like the weakling bad guys who don't want to get wet, and everything sounds like this, and it gets really annoying really fast. However, it's kind of endearing. Like, I kind of like it. I think as a kid, I would have been annoyed because all I wanted to see was action
yeah.
at this point.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's probably why I watched the hell out of this show versus the other ones on comic strip. Really quickly, there was a toy line for this, for these guys, and I think it failed miserably when it initially came out. The figures were cool. They had like a conversion thing where their alternate head was in their chest, and you basically flip the head over.
Yeah, okay.
If you go on eBay now, it's ridiculous because people are selling these for like several $100s for like broken figures, and it's a joke. I don't think anybody should do that. Why Super 7 has not jumped on board the Tiger Shark line is beyond me, because it is ripe for a reboot. It is absolutely ripe. Silverhawks too. I mean, if they did it with Thundercats, maybe because Thundercats didn't prove to be so successful, that's why they didn't do that with Silverhawks and Tiger Sharks. Look, I didn't make a mistake that time. I love this show. I think this show is super cool. The animation, I think, is what you mentioned. The animation to the intro is phenomenal.
Spectacular.
Just like Thundercats,
Yep.
just like Silverhawks. The overall episodes, you're having to do a lot more episodes, so it makes sense that the quality's not as good, but it's still really good.
Oh, I'd say from what I saw, the interior of the episodes were better than Thundercats' animation. For me,
Yeah.
Growing up, I was a big Thundercats fan, but I look back on it now, that intro is everything for Thundercats. It's one of the best of all time, but the animation style, when you actually get into the show itself, there is such a giant gap between the intro and everything. This, I actually felt, did a damn good job. Like, the interior animation did a damn good job. As I was watching it, I realized I had some familiarity with it when I saw the walrus guy. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I like the animation. Walro, yeah. I like the animation. I liked the setup because they kind of came from Earth. They didn't, and then they go to Watero because they get, a distress signal type of thing. Although I wasn't sure if they spend the rest of their time on that planet, or do they kind of go out and do they go back to Earth? Do they do other things? I found it also interesting that I thought that them being able to turn into these creatures was a thing right from the beginning, and hence why all of their vehicles were designed to look like, whales and sharks and stuff. It's like, no, we designed everything to look like underwater creatures, and then we learned how to turn into underwater creatures.
Right, this is like an afterthought. Oh, by the way, I invented this machine because I'm scary smart.
I thought that was a little weird. I think they should have just had them, because here's the thing. The funny thing in the pilot episode, they were like, we have 4 minutes to prepare for launch. So they have like just a little bit of time. So then he's like, oh, let me show you this thing real quick. We just have 4 minutes. Let me show you this life-changing, world-rattling technology. And, it's just like, I'm like, wow. What a way to just sort of undersell it. Why didn't you just have it at the beginning? Just have them already have that ability from the get-go. I just found that was really weird. And it was also weird in the fact that, the show starts with like the main bad guys just zipping around this planet, and they see some other people frozen in ice, and they're like, hey, they look frozen in ice. What we should do? We should burn them. And it's like, I'm like, so were they trying to kill them? But then the burning of them just releases them. And then I was like, well, okay, are they, and then now these bad guys are also going to be like the bad guys. And I'm just like, the first episode had some weird setups. That's all I'm saying. Because overall, it's really cool, and you don't need these weird ass setups. You could have just had the bad guys be the bad guys. You could have just had them have their powers from the beginning, but it was just really, really odd. Bad guys were cool looking. I liked the manta ray looking guy, the main guy.
T-Ray.
T-Ray. I liked him. I like the chick. She turned into hot octopus head, so she's gonna do some hentai shit with those tentacles, man.
Wow, Octavia.
Octavia. And then
by the way, her figure was never released, and I had this whole discussion with Bodhi about this, about 80s toys. And we've talked about this before. They never released a figure for her.
Yeah.
Because there was this lame idea that boys would not play with girl characters.
Right.
G.I. Joe was one of the few that did that. I think, or He-Man too. But
He-Man,
come on.
I mean, obviously Tila and everything. But yeah, G.I. Joe I think had a bit more. Although I don't think we ever got a cover girl figure.
They made
back
a cover
in the day.
girl.
Did they? Okay.
They did. I never had it, and I know she's rare to get.
Okay, she was
basically Scarlet with like a Scarlet variation on Scarlet with blonde hair instead of red hair.
And as a kid, I always wanted in Mask the girl with the yellow helmet, and then the bad girl. They didn't make a toy of the bad girl either with the purple hair or whatever.
Nope.
She was kind of a Zorana ripoff.
Zorana, yeah.
Yeah, she was a little bit of a ripoff of her, but I liked her.
I know Ramen Toys is a site you guys should go on. They're on Instagram. They're making like a what do you call that? Unlicensed or
80s Commandos or something like that. So they put out the Centurion figures, but they're called 80s Commandos, even though they look exactly like the Centurions. And then they're making some really awesome Mask stuff.
They're recreating all the figures and vehicles, but they're making the figures the same scale, but they're making them more articulated. And so they have more joints to move. And I think they're making the female version as well. She came with a Porsche. And, so they're making her. I think they make a Silver Hawk. I think they make Quicksilver. Anyways.
Yeah,
cool
they're cool. Check out Ramen Toys. I follow them on Instagram. I always enjoy everything they put out. I don't own anything, but I like it. Looks good, The only other thing I wanted to just kind of weird thing I wanted to call out, the head of the council of the people who run that planet, Watero. His name was Papa Gallows, and anytime I hear that name, I always think of Road Warrior. The good guy, the blonde head good guy or whatever, the British dude. His name was Papa Gallows, and I always thought that was an interesting name, and it popped up here, and I actually paused it just to kind of go check it and double check and everything. But yeah, I've only ever heard that name twice. Once in Road Warriors, once in Tiger Sharks.
That's interesting. That's
yeah.
interesting. Well, I look, I know that most of the episodes of Tiger Sharks are on YouTube, for example, and it never got a proper like DVD release, probably because it was under the banner of comic strip. I know it eventually got its own time slot, which is cool. But you know, it's a shame. Like, I feel like they had so much potential to do more with this show, but they just never did. And I think, you know, Thundercats had come and gone, Silverhawks had come and gone, Tiger Sharks was the last kind of road to travel on, and they kind of petered out, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem is that you're kind of limited to water. So, like, everything sort of has to be water-based, which
Unless it's Water World, right?
Exactly. I even liked the inside the ship of the bad guys was all also, like, water inside. So they were kind of, like, swimming around it inside their own ship. I thought that was a really cool concept. I didn't think that the other villains, like Dragonstein or whatever, and the captain were very...
Dragonstein.
I didn't think they were very inspired, like their designs, but T-Ray was cool. Like, I liked him, and I just wish I wish it would have been more of like a Transformers scenario where everyone's kind of from the same planet, so there's some sort of inherent, design elements that kind of, whereas like, because you could tell, I guess, like, well, but they're not from the same planet, because the setup for Tiger Sharks is the thing that's holding it back the most, and that's the thing.
Totally.
Here's the problem. They overcomplicated it. The creators overcomplicated it when, even as a kid, when I look back on this show and I think back on it, I didn't know they transformed. Just make them in their Tiger Shark form all the time and just have it be like Thundercats. I don't see them doing anything special with the transformation back and forth. Like, I don't really see the writers incorporating something interesting there, So if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to, like, say, hold that pool technology hostage in some episodes so they can't change back, if there's no time limit on, like, oh, we can't stay in tiger form for too long, otherwise we get stuck that way, it's like, just make them that way. I didn't understand the need for all this added bloat to it.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if they, like, had to go undercover in their in their fish form, and they could, but in their human form they were known as something else, right? Like, it was their secret identity to the bad guys, at least, Mako is here.
How about this? Okay. Yeah, so have them only be limited in how long they can stay in human form and on land, and, maybe have it be that they work with the government, but people think that they're humans, but they're really not. They're really these aliens, and maybe a few... Like, that's a way to utilize the transformation aspect. It doesn't seem like they're really setting anything up to utilize it here. It's just they were, they just turn into shark people and they can get these powers. It's like, well, I would just stay that way then.
Right. I know, and they don't do that.
But overall, and we'll just get into the final thoughts of the whole anthology, overall, this was the strongest cartoon. The animation was great. I have a feeling that this was probably produced first, and they were like, well, what are we going to do with it? And they maybe built the other shows around it. Possibly, I don't know. But it's just... quality-wise, this one outshines every other show. It's definitely the star of the bunch for sure.
Agreed.
And in the episodes that I did watch of Tiger Sharks here, maybe there wasn't a moral, but them having to go rescue Orca or Lorca, whatever that guy was.
Lorca.
Like that already is instilling a moral. It's showing, the fact that they're standing up for their friend, camaraderie. It's just these kind of things are just sort of inherent to these action shows. You can put people in danger and have someone rescue them, and that kind of gives you this sense of morality and everything, versus Mini Monsters where they're just at a camp getting into shenanigans, and then at the end of the episode, nothing really happens. So I feel like there's two shows. The two strongest shows for me here are Tiger Sharks and Street Frogs, because I think both of them also had like the characters in there had a purpose of something to do overall, not just a purpose of something to do in that particular moment and episode. Do you know what I mean when I'm saying that?
No, I think that's accurate. I agree with that. I think that that the Camp Minimon was ripe for moral messages to send to kids. Like in the first episode, they could have had the two brats be like, gosh, we're so mean to our parents. And like, you know, meanwhile, they're like, we're having a great time. Gee. You know, and it's nothing gets resolved as far as their attitudes, because guys, they are like the biggest pieces of crap on the planet. What they do to their house and their family and everything. I'm just like, oh, this makes you not want to have kids, basically. Because trust me, I know kids that do act like this, and so there are kids like this in the world, and now they're running for president. You know, but I think that Street Frogs has really cool opportunities, but I think it's also like a more mature subject matter. You know, teenagers wanting to become like rap artists that I don't think would appeal to younger kids. And the animation makes it very young.
Yeah, and I got the sense that they were a bit older too. Like they were working jobs and stuff in that show. And yeah, I would say that one is probably the most mature theme of all of them. Because, you know, I mean, yeah, Tiger Sharks is mature because it's kind of like it seems like an older cartoon. It's for the action-y and everything. But the themes in Street Frogs is more mature because, yeah, they're talking about getting their break in the music industry, you know, they're talking about realistic stuff. Like they need to make enough money so they can rent, you know, a studio to cut a demo. Like these are real world things, and I like that. I enjoyed that.
It sounds like Boogie Nights to me. We need to take that magic on those tapes.
I mean,
get it to the radio stations. You don't fucking get it, Bert.
Yeah, dude, it totally is. And I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow Street Frogs was in the back of his mind when he was writing
Paul Thomas
Boogie Nights.
Anderson.
Yeah. You know he watched.
You know what I feel like doing right now? I feel like kicking some ass.
You know he watched comic strip when he was a kid, you know?
Come on. Yeah, I think, you know, like this is a perfect example of nostalgia being more... nostalgia being that hell of a drug. Like, you know, feeling that, oh my God, comic strip was amazing. And then you watch and you're like, it was okay. Tiger Sharks, definitely. I agree with you with the order. I feel like Tiger Sharks, Street Frogs, Karate Cat, and Camp Minimon.
Yeah, that's mine too. Yeah, that's top to bottom. Yeah.
And as far as Bodhi's concerned, I feel like he said the same thing. He's like, the cool one was Tiger Sharks. The rest were kind of.
And that's the thing. I had no nostalgia going into this, so I'm watching it completely, you know, sober, stone cold sober at the age of 45 in 2023. And, you know, it did teach me that I was like, you know what? I do look for some kind of a message in my cartoons or my shows, or just a point.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be ham-fisted. It doesn't have to be like, oh, this is the right way to do something. But I need some kind of a point for my cartoon, especially if it's just wild, zany antics like Camp Minimon. We keep calling it. It's called Mini Monsters. Camp Minimon is so much better. That should have been the name right there. But you look at that show, and they just have nothing to say. They're like the creators, the writers, they really have nothing to say. They're just creating situations that they think kids are going to like to sort of sell this cartoon. Whereas Street Sharks and I think Street Frogs had the most to say, but Tiger Sharks was the most entertaining. And then for me, Karate Cat. This is what happens when no alcohol is in my body. Or Zak's, too. We can't get anything right. Karate Cat was the most racist and just the most bizarre. Like I said, I didn't even get the pitch of this one. I don't even get what we're trying to even do here. Like, and then weirdly, the main guy, Karate Cat, after I watched the episode, I felt like I didn't know any more about him. I felt like I knew more about the villains than I did him. they didn't do anything with him. He was just there. I was like, how is he connected to this boss lady, this claw lady? I was like, oh, he works for her? I don't want to watch a cartoon about the guy who works for someone who's stronger than him. Like, he should be the guy. He should be the guy running in his own private detective agency, right? Not working. I was so thrown off by that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I appreciated it like Sylvester Stallone.
And I didn't get that at all. Like,
and by the way, Neil Ross was the voice of Sylvester. Neil Ross was the voice of Rambo in the animated series.
And wasn't he the voice of Shipwreck on G.I. Joe too?
I believe he was. Yeah.
Yeah, Karate Cat, man. I didn't get that one at all, dude. Like, seriously, I didn't get it. But okay. So as a whole, looking at this thing from a whole, I very much enjoyed the jingle. I enjoyed the comic strip theme song.
COMIC. Yep. STRIP. Come on, take a trip on the comic strip.
And I get the idea, the concept of what it's called and putting these cartoons together. And I guess ultimately, you don't need to have any kind of thread keeping them together because the comic strip aspect is that. Although they don't really feel like comic strips come to life, so the title itself is sort of, not really connected to the whole. But, yep. I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag. The animation styles sort of don't meld and don't sort of fit together. They all look very different. Street Frogs is probably the most crude of all the animation. TigerSharks is the best. Karate Cat and Mini Monsters is serviceable, I guess. But the animation just didn't seem to connect and flow together between all of them.
Agreed. No, I totally agree. I feel like, the Camp Minimon doesn't feel like has the worst animation, I think, of all three.
Yeah, probably.
And TigerSharks has the best.
Yes, agreed.
And you feel like, they feel rushed. Like, oh, we just got to get these things out there. I would love to understand the motivation as to why they threw all these together.
Yeah, why did you pick these? Like, and also too, it's the age stuff. Like, the Mini Monsters felt like it was for such a younger age group than any of the other ones. That one felt like it was the youngest. And then TigerSharks felt, more for like the my age group at the time. Even though I didn't find this, it felt like it was probably more for my age. And then Street Frogs felt like it was kind of a little bit older, almost like almost Fat Albert-y-esque, a smidge.
Yeah. No, I for sure. Though Fat Albert's animation was fantastic. And that was another Filmation show too.
Yep, it was. I grew up on Fat Albert. I love that cartoon.
So do I. It's too bad the guy behind it's a POS.
And that's why, Fat Albert and the Cosby Show will disappear into history because he's a piece of shit. Even though so many great messages come from the Cosby Show.
Wow, I mean, so many.
It's amazing. But real quick, Zach, before we finish things here, the YouTube video that we watched did have a bunch of 80s cartoons that were great.
It sure did. Sorry, in fact, one of the commercials was for Corky, Cricket's little brother.
Right.
It's my real best friend, and it's so interesting. The 80s were about I guess there were a lot of single children, because this seems to appeal for the people that meet. I wasn't, but I could see why. Like, My Buddy was popular, but Corky was a total ripoff.
Total ripoff of My Buddy. And to speak to that point, Zach, I never got into the Corky or the My Buddy or My Pet Monster, although I kind of thought he was kind of neat. But I do understand that they were marketed at people like me. I had no siblings. I was a latchkey kid. And yeah, I had friends, but I didn't actually have very many friends in my neighborhood. My closest friends were like Luke. I couldn't walk to them. Like, I'd have to be driven to their house. So I did spend a lot of my school days and stuff, just kind of playing with myself. That sounds terrible, but you know what I mean. And I got, as a kid, even as a kid, I understood that it was marketing towards me, but I was like, no, I don't want that. I like having imagination with my toys, but I don't treat them. I never treated them as a person, so I never understood that concept.
I was never into like a weird doll to supplement a real friend. That's why I was so glad when Child's Play came out. Which this might be a little bit of a hot take. I don't think it's as good as everyone makes it out to be. Everyone pops boners over Child's Play. I don't think it is like that amazing. I think it's good.
Yeah.
But it just didn't like wow me. But this Cricket character is weird. Did you recognize that kid? Because I think he was in Nightmare on Elm Street, the Demon Child or Dream Child or whatever.
It kind of looked like the kid from Children of the Corn, but I know it wasn't. But he had those bug eyes, and he kind of looked like the Dream Child kid. But I think that kid might have been a little bit younger. But I know what you're talking about. He had those freaking bug eyes.
That actor, actually, his name is Whit Hertford, who's only a couple years. He was born in 1978, by the way.
Okay, so my age.
He was in Jurassic Park as well. He was that kid who's like, with the raptor claw.
Yep.
Yeah, he was in Nightmare 5, The Dream Child. Anyways, yeah, I think what's more disturbing is the animation that they do for him, and I'm like, ooh, because in that Corky, you guys have to see. It's the opening to this YouTube thing.
It's right away.
But that's great. Then the
and I remember that commercial, by the way. I remember it totally. I remember all these commercials, especially the Wilford Brimley Quaker Instant Oatmeal commercial, too.
Wilford Brimley, what did he say? He had a line in there that was so funny. He's like, you smell that or something, it's good for you and it tastes good, too, or some bullshit. I'm like, oh, God, I miss Wilford Brimley.
I know.
Then there was a commercial for Battle Beasts.
Yes.
Gosh, do you remember how awesome those were?
Yeah, dude, especially I enjoyed the commercial because the set that the kid was in had so many Battle Beasts figures everywhere, and I thought it was awesome. And this particular commercial was showing off like the vehicles and whatnot, which I never had. But I didn't
have the vehicles too, and I was like, why didn't I have those?
Yeah, I never had them either. I only had the Battle Beasts themselves. But I love those old commercials. I remember loving like the old Star Wars commercials and G.I. Joe commercials where they would make like play areas scenes for the vehicles and stuff, and they would kind of look like what they're supposed to look like Hoth, and I remember like they would have like styrofoam cups upside down cut out with like little doors, and that's how they made like the turrets, and I was like, that's so cool. Like as a kid, it's like, that's so smart. I loved all that shit. I love seeing the sets that they created for these toys, and that Battle Beast one was fantastic.
It was so cool. And for those of you that don't know what Battle Beasts are, they had like a little hologram on their chest, and it would reveal their power, like their elemental power, basically. They were great. They were like pocket heroes. They may be 1.5 inches tall, maybe 2 inches, and they were different animals. They're really cool looking. Again,
they're actually a part of the Transformers universe, but when they came... Yeah, they originally started as part of the Transformers universe. That's why they have all those robotic parts on them.
Cool.
But when they brought them over here, they brought them as their own, separate, product and everything.
But I think Transformers. Yeah, sorry.
I think in the comics or somehow they actually recently, like in IDW stuff, comic books, recent comics, and Transformers, I think they actually brought them in. They finally made that connection happen.
Oh, that's cool. They were very unique, and I mean, I love them.
I did too. I also loved the Light Bright commercial because I forgot that they had the Ghostbusters license as well.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen 8-Bit Christmas, I don't want to spoil it for you, but Light Bright has a connection to that.
Yeah.
And so Bodhi's like, did it have a jingle or did it have a song? And I would sing it to him. He's like, oh, that's terrible. And then we saw the commercial. He's like, oh, that's the song you sing. Anyways, a s'mores cereal was cool. Yep. There was a s'mores crunch cereal, which looked delicious, and I'm sure it was terrible for your teeth. And then this commercial comes on, and I'm like, that's disgusting. But then I realized I used to eat them all the time. Fruit Wrinkles.
I knew you were going to say that. I couldn't wait to call it out because I was like, oh, my God. I remember Fruit Wrinkles, and then they were like Fruit Roll-Ups. I was like, okay, so they're the same company, made Fruit Wrinkles and Fruit Roll-Ups, but I remember the Fruit Wrinkles. I don't think they're around anymore, but I know Fruit Roll-Ups are. But then the commercial itself was claymation, and I remember that as well. And I was like, oh my god, I love this commercial as a kid, because I was a huge claymation fan as a kid. I loved the Rankin and Bass stuff, you know, like we talked about.
California Raisins.
The
Noid.
Clay Fighters, the video game, the Noid. I loved all the claymation shit as a kid.
Oh yeah, dude, I forgot about Clay Fighters. And then Lady Lovely Locks was a commercial, which I thought was really funny, where she's like, her eyes wink and blink, and I'm like, that's disturbing.
I know. I saw that and I was like, I have no recollection of this whatsoever, and this thing terrified me. And then Teddy Ruxpin, it wasn't a commercial for the toy, it was a commercial for the cartoon, and then I was like, oh my fucking god, I remember there was a cartoon too. Totally forgot about it until just today.
Yes, so cool. Teddy Ruxpin was in competition with A.G. Bear, which basically would just mimic what you said, but it wouldn't. It was like a sound it would make. It would be like, "I love you, A.G." Okay. And these were two rival. There's actually a quick little documentary news clip online. You can you can look on YouTube or whatever. But it was, I think, like the two guys from Atari were at odds with each other. Okay. And each had competing bears, and obviously Teddy Ruxpin won out. AG was a cheaper version. It's a really funny commercial or funny news or thing. It's like on 60 Minutes or whatever, because they were competing against each other as to who was the better bear at the time.
But then, like, Teddy Ruxpin, for me, falls under the category of, you know, My Pet Monster and, you know, Corky and all that, My Buddy and stuff like that. I didn't see the appeal of it. And maybe it was for a little bit younger audience than I was at the time. But, again, I didn't want any of it. The closest one I would have wanted would have been My Pet Monster. But I never watched that cartoon either. Did you?
I didn't watch it. And I've talked to Dustin about this on $2 late fee. He's like, I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. And I mean, like, I think I didn't like big stuffed animals because I think I was aged out at that point.
Yeah, me too. I wanted things to be the same scale as my G.I. Joes and my Star Wars figures, so I could just play them all together, because I was such a scale whore. And I mean, even as a kid, the reason I didn't have a lot of Transformers, because I didn't even like the fact that within their own universe, they weren't even in the correct scale. Like, Bumblebee is so much smaller than Optimus Prime, and I'm just like, but they're supposed to be the same. The cartoon tells me that they're the same. Just, and then I never, ever, and I don't care how you explain it, I never liked Megatron transforming into a gun that Starscream could hold in his hand.
Nope, it made no sense.
Yeah. I mean, and I watched a lot of Transformers, but I hated all of that.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. we would have been on the same page as kids. We would have liked the same shit.
You know, the GoBots were all in scale. They were all in scale to each other. Actually, they weren't. Were they? Yes, I guess they were.
I had one GoBot.
Scooter was bigger than Leader 1, so maybe not.
I had a Cyclone. What's the bad guy's name? Is it Cyclone?
Yeah, Cyclone.
I had one toy of him, and he was like he's a big version of him. Like, he was like that big.
Oh, really?
And he transformed. He was really cool. And then that one car, you know what I'm talking about? It looked like a futuristic car, and then like the canopy would be its head when it transformed.
Yeah, I still have that toy.
I know. And as a kid, I didn't love it.
Had like a silver figure in the seat or something.
Yes, it did. As a kid, I didn't love it, but now as an adult, I think it looks really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think as a kid, I was like, this doesn't play very well. But now, as an adult, it stays up on your shelf, and you're like, that's cool to look at.
It's amazing what we look for as an adult versus what we would look for as a kid.
Right.
But to wrap things up with the comic strip, guys and gals, if you've never seen it, you know, go check the video, scan through. If you don't like one show, just scan to the next one and check it out. You'll know right away when you see them. You know, a minute into each episode, you'll know what they're about and whether they're your cup of tea or not. I'd say overall, TigerSharks is what I would revisit if I were ever so inclined. And at this point, I would just rather watch more Masters of the Universe, or, you know, go back and rewatch the Thundercats reboot and give that a second viewing and whatnot. So
TigerSharks is fun to just for nostalgic reasons.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my closing thoughts on comic strip. I'm glad we did it because you've been mentioning it for so long, but it never really clicked for me because I had no nostalgia for it. But I liked knowing that this was such a big part of your childhood, or it inspired you. And I think that's important. No matter what we think of these episodes, the fact that this cartoon inspired Zach to follow a certain path in life, I think that's amazing.
I think it's a testament to animation, you know, and what kind of influence it can have on you as a kid, for sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or not. And if it's from the 90s, then probably no one will like it.
Yeah, I know.
JK,
So,
LOL.
final thoughts, Zach, on the whole thing?
I'm glad I was able to revisit it, and I'm glad all these shows still exist on the internet, on YouTube, because once it's gone, it's gone. So at least there's other genre lovers out there who love this stuff like we do, and they can appreciate it for whether it's good or bad. And thankfully they put this stuff on there, because seeing shows get lifted and suddenly vanish from HBO or Max or Disney Plus, it's a shame. So I think all of these had people making them at a certain time, so you have to appreciate what went into making these shows, whether they're that good or not. Well, it's some people I'm sure enjoyed it a lot more than we did, as far as like the Mini Mon show. But I think TigerSharks will live on for sure, and it'll probably I would not be surprised if it gets rebooted down the road, or if it's being rebooted right now.
I mean, the fact that I know what the TigerSharks were and I never watched it, it that still has some brand recognition. That name still has some brand value to it. So yeah, like you, I'm expecting to see some sort of resurgence of TigerSharks in the future, and it'll probably come from Super 7, but who the fuck knows?
Probably. But then it'll take 3 years to finally get it.
Exactly. So, but thank you guys so much for going on the TV Obscura journey with us. Diallo was definitely missed this episode, but he should be back in the future. And this kicks off our season 5, which is pretty freaking amazing.
Season 5.
Wow. So we've been doing this for a long time, guys. And somehow we're getting worse. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Or better.
I know. But the amount of name fuck-ups we did this episode is truly remarkable. And I'm going to keep them all in because,
okay, fine.
Guys and gals, this is what happens when you get two podcasters who are used to having a little bit of a buzz going, doing this thing stone cold sober.
Stone cold.
But speaking of some stone cold soberness, no, that doesn't work. But speaking of stone cold... but not really. It's a bad transition, guys. It's a bad segue. What's going on with Territory Marks over at $2 late fee, buddy boy?
Wow. Well, we just dropped episode 4, and Paul London and I just recorded episode 5, which will be dropping later on this month. Another banger of an episode. It's going strong. Paul actually has been a great addition to $2 late fee. In fact, we just did we're doing like a monthly trivia, and Paul may be a reoccurring guest on the show using patrons as we'll be playing for patrons. So don't be surprised if that continues to pop up. And it's all month long. We're celebrating Jill Schoelen and her movies. So the star of Stepfather and Popcorn and Curse to the Bite, those genre films, but she's so much more than that. So look for her interview to drop soon if it hasn't already. And
I can picture the cover for Curse 2 in my head.
Yeah, and we talk a little bit about that film thanks to David Irons, a patron and friend of the show. $2 late fee is now a weekly podcast, just like Podcasting After Dark. So it's constantly editing, I'm like, Corey and I are part of that same world. We're
welcome to the party, pal.
Right. But we've got that. We've got Territory Marks. All lots of fun on $2 late fee. Check it out if you love wrestling, if you love 80s movies, 90s movies. We're coming up on our 4-year anniversary soon, and we'll be doing a crossover with Corey very soon as well. So look for that news to pop up any day now on our Instagram socials.
Yeah, no, we have. Yep, we're going to do another one of our annual crossover episodes. I love those. Those are so much fun.
Me too.
But yeah, no, good job, buddy. And kind of just to reiterate, Territory Marks is like TV Obscura, where it's on the same feed as $2 late fee. So how just same as TV Obscura is on the pad, feed and everything. So go check that out. It's a great show. And then Zach and I over here on Patreon, the Podcast After Dark Patreon, we are tackling John Carpenter's filmography. We are getting into his filmography's twilight years. We're getting towards the end of it. We did just drop our Village of the Damned episode. We both very much enjoyed that movie. And we will be dropping our Escape from LA episode this month. And we still have to record our Vampires episode. I think we're going to be recording that, in 2 weeks. And then we're going to have Ghost of Mars, and we're going to have David on for Ghost of Mars because he wanted to be on Ghost of Mars for some reason. So,
yeah, he wanted to be.
Why? When did you want to do that to yourself? Although, once we watch, having learned through our Escape from LA episode that the Ghost of Mars it was originally supposed to be a Snake Plissken script, I'm a bit more interested in watching that movie now with that in mind.
Yeah, no, I am too. I'm going to keep an open mind, just like I'm keeping an open mind with vampires, all that good stuff.
We did it for all of them, dude. I kept an open mind for Escape from LA, and I found some fun in that, and we'll talk about that. And I kept an open mind for the Village of the Damned, and I was very much enjoyed that one. So, every episode, Zach and I go into that movie expecting to love it, but, unfortunately, things happen, and Memoirs of an Invisible Man, and things just chip away at your love for things.
Yeah, nostalgia can't always hold you, hold the movie up.
Nope, it certainly can't. So, but we can try. It can try.
We're trying really hard. And thank you to all the patrons who support us trying.
Yes, exactly. Thank you all so much, and thank you for supporting TV Obscura, and give Diallo some love out there. Hope he's enjoying his vacation, and as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side. It's gonna be a great time. Come on with us on Podcasting After Dark. Do 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 do.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
Hey everyone, co-host Corey here. I just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Without you, Podcasting After Dark would not be possible. If you would like to help the show grow, please consider signing up at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. You can also support the show by purchasing one of our awesome t-shirt designs on our merch store at podcastingafterdark.com. or by picking up a copy of 7 Winters Alone by David Irons on paperback, hardback, or Kindle. Just search for 7 Winters Alone on Amazon or click on the link in the show notes. A free way to help out is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Those reviews are huge for us and really helps get the show in front of new listeners. Again, thank you all so much for the love and support you've given us over these past few years. It really means the world to us.